we are apparently now the #1 capital in Europe for Sharia law.
Yeah. Is that
we
a
are
good thing?
the, I think we're the #1 country in the West for Sharia law, and we're allowing practices of Sharia law which actually many Muslim countries have banned.
Yeah.
And it's because we've taken the view in this country that as long as Sharia law doesn't directly oppose British law, we will allow its practice. And
well, so
it's
if
wrong.
I said I was a Muslim and I've been accused of, I don't know, driving too fast or whatever, could I then say I'd like to be tried under Sharia court?
No, on that you can't.
Good.
Where it's a conflict between Sharia law and British law, rides supreme. But it's mostly in family law where it's a bit nebulous about, which law is applicable. So, for example, if you want to marry 4 wives, which you're allowed to do under Islam, in the UK, we simply won't recognise the marriages. And because we haven't recognised the marriages in the first place, we allow the divorce procedures that are compliant with Sharia law to take place, and we turn a blind eye to it.
Why don't we tell them to get out of the country? Why don't we turn round and say, this is not the culture of the United Kingdom. If you want to live under these ridiculous religious laws, and I'm sure if this carries on, the fanatical Christians will have some things they want to bring in. They'll probably want to make homosexuality illegal and various other things. But why do we allow religious sects, whether it's Christianity, Islam or any of the others, to have all this power?
Well, they've got 5 seats in Parliament, including the one with Jeremy Corbyn now at the moment.
I mean, that, James, is the pertinent question, is why do we allow so many different cultural silos to exist alongside effectively British culture? And I think it comes down to this. We are hijacked by a form of extreme liberalism where we think that everyone should be entitled to do and practice whatever it is they believe in, irrespective of whether or not it conflicts with British settled culture. It's everyone's right to be that which they wish to be. And what we've forgotten is the importance of an integrated culture. So it's not so much about being against Islam, it's about not being pro-British culture. And what we've got to get used to is, the agenda we've got to drive is, fine, you come to our country, great, you're welcome. But you've got to adopt our values. You've got to adopt our culture. You've got to adopt effectively.
But we're losing our culture and we tolerate intolerance. They've got 5 seats, in 20, 30 years, they might have 200 seats.
But Christianity
it could change,
was as bad 500 years ago, some might say worse, and we have advanced. Islam doesn't seem to be doing it.
Blasphemy's coming back, isn't it?
They seem to think that they can dictate, the men of Islam, dictate to women. They can tell them what they can wear, when they can go out, where they can go out. And this is not the culture of a modern 21st century country. But nobody is going to speak up against it because people will say, oh, you're a racist. Well, I'm not a racist, and you can call me a racist.
Islamophobic.
Exactly.
But there's people who want to bring in, the proper Sharia law, where you have executions and there are people, we've had them on the show, and, eventually they're getting more and more power. It hopefully won't happen, but as they get more seats and they push for more political influence, they're going to get nearer.
Yeah, so, I mean, British democracy is a very subtle, gentle ecosystem. It's evolved over hundreds of years. It's very vulnerable because it's all welcoming. It's a very mature form of, governance. And Islam, I think the root issue, the root difference between Islam and the way we would wish to govern ourselves, or the way we did govern ourselves, is that the Quran is basically the word of God dictated to the Prophet Muhammad through the angel Gabriel. And if it's
you
the word
believe
of
that
God,
sort of thing, and a lot of people don't.
But that is Islam. And so the Quran is perfect because it's the word of God. Therefore, it doesn't have any truck with being challenged. It is the settled word of God. It is perfect. You can't improve on it. And that is, I think, the essential fundamental problem. And it is fundamentalist Islam, by the way. There are lots of different forms of Islam.
But the youth are taking that up. The Henry Jackson Society, it's not the people our age. The younger people are getting actually more religious and more, you know, is extremist in their views, which is strange,
well,
isn't it?
fundamentalist. I would draw a distinction between extremism and fundamentalism.
Yeah.
We tend to talk about Islam in the context of extremism. Actually, before you get to extremism, it's fundamentalism that we need to be concerned about, because it's through being fundamentalist, an inability to evolve, an inability to be tolerant of others, that comes the extremism. Extremism is what you get after fundamentalism has established itself. And what we're not in this country anymore, thank goodness, is fundamentalist in any shape or form.
Yeah.
Christianity has taken a back seat to governance. It's allowed the democratic process to proceed. It's removed itself from government, and it allows us to do that which we wish to do or what we need to do in order to have a prosperous society. And Islam hasn't quite got there yet.
Well, it's filling the vacuum that's been left, because now we're bringing in blasphemy. Look, well, we already have them in the back door. If you ask the teacher in Batley, he's got to hide for the rest of his life, or Salman Rushdie, you know, it's coming back.
We had that MP, didn't we, Tahir Ali, standing up in Parliament saying that he wanted to bring in effectively the protection of the Abrahamic religions, but by which what he meant was effectively bring in blasphemy law to protect Islam.
Yeah.
And we mustn't allow that.
No.
Any ideology, whether it's Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Shia Islam, Sunni Islam, whatever it is, everything needs to be up for debate in this country. The greatness of this country has come through a broad-minded preparedness to debate anything. And the minute you try and shut that debate down, which is what, you know, effectively happens if you're a fundamentalist.
Well, we don't have freedom of speech in this country. We don't have open debate.
No,
People can't say stuff.
We're finding out.
And that's where extreme liberalism goes, because extreme liberalism won't allow debate because it already it believes that it's got the settled correct result. And if you challenge extreme liberalism, which is why we, you know, tolerate all these different cultures in our country, you are effectively challenging the right of people to be what they wish to be. And so you have to shut down that debate in order to propagate that agenda.
Yeah, they say it's disinformation or racism.
To finish this up on the most serious point of this time of year, Ben, we had him on the programme the other night, and now everybody is talking to this guy who's released a record. It's become #1 all over the place.
He's brilliant.
It's called Freezing This Christmas. And let's have a quick look before we finish this. This is a clip from it. Here we go.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
There we are, #1 in the... I take it back, it's working.
Yeah.
I'm just shouting it, but I take it back.
fumbling fingers.
Yeah. I've got shaky hands. That's #1 in the iTunes chart, but the thing is, the BBC are refusing to play it.
Yeah, I mean, that song sums up basically the governance of this Labour, you know, party. Yeah. They've turned their back on the British people. They've turned their back on the elderly in this country, and they've got their ideology. 11 billion going abroad for foreign climate change projects. 500 million being cut from our defence budget while we're firing Storm Shadow missiles into Russia, provoking perhaps, you know, a third world war through our actions. You know, we've got this complete disconnect between those who govern us and the people about what it is that they are obliged to.
And the media have been captured. You know, they're political activists for Keir Starmer, the BBC, and Sky News, and a lot of
they are. Yeah. Absolutely. They're completely captured by the narrative.
What do you think?
We've got to push back against it.
What do you think about this as well before we go slightly over? Long Hoyle break. That we're talking about the Speaker of the House.
Pun,
yeah.
It's a pun. I didn't get it. He's racked up £250,000 for jet setting around over the last year.
Not economy.
How can that be allowed?
Well, it shouldn't be. And I mean, the issue that I've got with Lindsay Hoyle is that he's an activist Speaker of the House, and he's meant to be neutral. So, for example, you know, he got up and he shut down debate about Southport and the riots, and you know what
he got rid of privilege of the privilege in the House of Commons.
He didn't.
Well, he's used a 2017 law that had been brought in. They never had that before, and he stopped a vote because there was a mob outside.
And actually, absolutely. And what parliamentarians should do is actually ignore Lindsay Hoyle and say, no, there are legitimate questions about Southport, for example, which have no bearing on the case that's going through the courts at the moment, and which we, the people of the United Kingdom, need to know. So, for example, when was it that Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper and Merseyside Police discovered that this guy was a second-generation Rwandan?
Yeah.
When did they discover that this guy was actually in possession of Al-Qaeda workbooks, that he was in possession of ricin? These are not questions that have a bearing on the case. These are questions that go to the integrity of the heart of our government. And Lindsay Hoyle has shut down that debate. And a brave parliamentarian should be getting up now in the Commons and challenging the Prime Minister to explain what it is he knew and when did he know it, and why weren't the British people made aware of it? Why was he allowed to castigate everyone who was protesting as being far right, directing the criminal justice system against them, and having no debate on the subject? And that's where our parliament has gone fundamentally wrong on that issue and many others of a similar nature.
Loads and loads of others. Ben, it's always good to talk. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thanks,
Compliments of the season. Happy Christmas.
Happy
Ho, ho, ho. Christmas to me is the time of giving and receiving, the time of Father Christmas. And you know, the other thing is that station I was talking about, they're having little religious messages. They're calling it I forgot what they're calling it, where you open one every day up to Christmas.
Oh, a thingamajig thing.
A thingamajig,
Advent calendar
of vicars and things coming out and saying stupid, ridiculous, absolutely appalling.